Hi, Grandma is here, and I'm going to be reading out of The Iron Ring by Lloyd Alexander. I'm going to begin today with chapter 20, The Ashrama. Now, if you recall, an ashrama is a retreat, and it's very beautiful. And but there's one strange thing about it. It should have a person who is very wise and very contemplative in charge of it. And there is a bear. So let's find out a little bit more about this ashrama and the bear. My name is Jambavan. The bear motioned toward the door of the ashrama. Come all and be welcome. Allow me to offer whatever rest and refreshment you deserve. So saying, Jambavan led his visitors into the main room of the hermitage, where he bustled about, finding more stools and benches, setting out bowls of fruit and pitchers of cool juices, as eagerly attentive as any human host to the comfort of his guests. When Tamar identified himself and his companions, the bear politely nodded to each in turn. Few travelers seek shelter here, Jambavan said. More precisely, none at all. I am thus especially honored that my first guests include not only a king, but as well a learned Brahmana. Your hermitage is lovely, said Mary. Are you the one who built it? No, said Jambavan, modestly shaking his head. Merely small improvements here and there. Nor is the ashrama mine. I am only its custodian. Naturally, I profit from the opportunity to read, study, and reflect on cosmic matters. Most remarkable, Rajaswami exclaimed. To think that a savage creature of the forest should devote himself to such noble endeavors. Most remarkable indeed. The bear's muzzle twitched. Brahmana, are you implying what you call a savage creature lacks the intelligence and sensitivity to pursue these subjects? Would you find it more appropriate, a low growl began rising in his throat, for one to pass his days lurking in the woods? Benighted, uninstructed, unaware of the finer things in life? Oh, not at all, Rajaswami protested. I only observed that it was extraordinary. Extraordinary? Jambavan burst out. Why so? Is a bear less capable than a Brahmana, unfit for subtle reasoning? Jambavan reared up to his full height, gnashing his teeth, roaring at the top of his voice. Rajaswami nearly tumbled off the stool while the bear stamped his feet and flailed his arms. Then, before Tamar could decide what to do, Jambavan went lurching toward the shelves, where he seized half a dozen pots and dashed them one after the other to the ground. Ah, that's better. Jambavan blew out his breath. I beg your pardon. These moments do come upon me. Pay no heed. That's the trouble with bears, Adhikavi whispered to Mary and Tamar. They're moody folk. But you never know what mood they'll be in from one moment to the next. I find it beneficial and soothing when I'm unsettled to break a few pieces of crockery, Jambavan went on. It never fails to have a calming effect. Glad to hear that, old boy, said Hashcat while the bear fetched a broom and swept up the shattered pots. But you must run through a lot of kitchenware. I fashion more, replied Jambavan, seating himself at the table. I find that pot-making, like tending my garden, frees the mind for philosophical speculation. The bear now, altogether composed, turned a benign glance at Rajaswami. Before I was, carried away, I was about to agree. My circumstances are somewhat unusual, yet quite logical and plausible. Would you be pleased to hear an illuminating anecdote? Of course, honored colleague, if I may call you that, said Rajaswami. We shall find it most instructive. The bear folded his paws and relaxed on the stool. Unfathomable are the ways of karma, he began. Consider this example. Once in the forest, a wild bear caught sight of a wandering Brahmana, long-bearded, wrinkled-browed, with an air of such wisdom that he must surely be a sage or a great rishi. Instead of letting him go by in peace, the bear sprang from the bushes, snarling and rattling his claws. The rishi, in no way alarmed, pressed his palms together and bowed courteously. Namaste, O worthy bear, said the rishi. You appear disturbed in spirit. How may I be of service to you? You can, growled the bear, by providing my dinner. I travel lightly, as you see, answered the rishi, and carry no edibles with me. However, I'm sure I can find something to satisfy you. I've already found something, retorted the bear. I intend to eat you up. Well, all creatures must have nourishment, said the rishi, unperturbed. You as well as I. All right, then go ahead and eat me up. Where do you wish to begin? Since I'm mostly skin and bones, you must be hungry indeed. Eh? The bear scowled at him. I'm not at all hungry. In that case, said the rishi, why do you want to eat me? The bear hesitated a moment, frowning. Because I'm a bear. It's my profession. That's what I do. Have you never contemplated doing something else? The sage inquired. Perhaps you wish to be a rishi. Certainly not, snapped the bear. Bear I am, bear I be. Well, if you devour me, you surely will be rishi, the sage replied. Once you gobble me up and digest me, will I not turn into your flesh and blood? Then I'll be in your muscles and sinews, heart, brain, nerves. You'll never get rid of me. Consider this logically, the sage continued. You're not hungry. You don't want to be rishi. I haven't offended you. Therefore, why do you choose to do me harm? Furthermore, you didn't get up this morning expecting to find me, and just think, suppose you'd taken another path, or I'd taken another path. We'd never have met in the first place. Stop, stop, roared the bear, who was not in the habit of thinking about anything at all. You're making my head hurt. My brain feels like it's caught rheumatism. It smarts and twinges. It's going to explode at any moment. Yes, thinking is a bit uncomfortable, said the rishi, but you'll get used to it. A matter of time and practice. I'm sorry I ever laid eyes on you, howled the bear. Go away, let me be. No, I won't, the rishi answered. You started the business, you'll have to finish it. Calm yourself. Come walk along with me a while. The bewildered bear finally agreed. For many days as they strolled through the forest, the rishi discoursed on stars and planets, suns and moons, beyond the sight of the sharpest-eyed eagle, of creatures so tiny their universe fit on the head of a pin, of paradoxes, riddles, anomalies, speculations. The bear in time began feeling that a bearish existence was an extremely small and boring one, and at last he begged the rishi to instruct him. I was that bear, said Jambavan. The rishi became my teacher and led me to his ashrama, where he taught me to read and write. He allowed me to remain and study while he continued his wanderings, promising one day to return. Here I have waited ever since. I regret that my bearish disposition gets the better of me on occasion, but when it does, I can always smash a few pots." Tamar had never seen his Acharya so happy. Rajaswami seemed to have taken root there, spending hours in philosophical discussions with the bear. When Rajaswami declared that infinity was a straight line, the bear maintained it was a circle and grew so unsettled that he nearly ran out of cookware to break. Hashcat during those sunny days drowsed under the fruit trees. Garuda in the balmy air of the hermitage complained less than usual. The bird had lost none of his adoration for Miri, but had in turn gained his own admirer, Akka, who constantly stayed close to him, groomed his feathers, and wheedled Garuda into carrying him aloft for short flights. Each night, Tamar made up his mind that they would leave the next day. Each morning, he had no heart to order a departure. He told himself he was delaying for the sake of Rajaswami, to let the Acharya enjoy a few more hours of pleasure. Then admitted this was his own reluctance, so strong that he could not overcome it. After a while, he understood. Simply, he was happy here. Miri, he never felt closer to her. They were seldom apart, except for her lessons from Adhikavi. As promised, the Sutta taught her some of his skills. "I try to see the world as it is," he began, "but you can see it in different ways. Our learned Brahmana looks at it with his logic, but it's not always a tidy place. The world, it's full of odd cracks and crevices and spaces in between, and more's possible than you might imagine. First thing is to have an open heart and a peaceful mind." To Adhikavi's delight, Miri soon caught the knack of putting herself into deepest slumber, scarcely breathing, to turn her body fiery hot or icy cold, to stay motionless without the least twitch of a finger or blink of an eye. When Tamar asked to leave, Adhikavi sighed. To learn, not to read. Tamar wants to learn the same things Miri's learning, and Adhikavi sighed. "If I read your heart aright, it's divided every which way, and too many things rattling around in your head, all arguing with each other. Later, perhaps, when you sort them out." Regretfully, he knew the Sutta was right. While Miri kept up with her lessons, he went off to find the bear, who was tidying up the kitchen. "My learned colleague and I have paused in our discussions," said Jambavan cordially. "We are reconsidering our position on the nature of infinity." "A vast subject," Tamar smiled. "Between you two sages, you'll get to the truth of it." "Oh, surely not," said the bear. "Behind one truth, there's always yet another, as you may find when you reach Mahapura. Yes, your Acharya told me of your journey and how it might end." "If it ends," Tamar said. "Tell me, O learned bear, suppose travelers wish to stop and live here. Would it be permitted?" "Contemplating the hypothetical situation you propose, the answer is yes, of course. What is the reason for your inquiry?" "Merely to know," Tamar said. During the next several days, Tamar and Miri rambled through the woods and picked fruit in the orchard. Exploring upstream, they found a waterfall and waded, soaking wet in the spray and foaming current. As if by silent agreement, neither spoke of Mahapura, and when Tamar planned to leave the ashrama. One evening, they swam to the biggest of the islands. In a circle of tall ferns, Miri paced light, dancing steps, moving from one graceful attitude to another. Beckoning to Tamar, she murmured, Once long ago we danced like this in a forest by old stones of ruined temples. Do you remember? Tamar answered, That night we heard a flute play. The notes were trembling and shy. Who was the player? Who were we? Mary continued the verse. King and queen, or god and goddess, as we had been forever. What interrupted our eternity? Tamar replied, Time stopped and held its breath, waiting for us to rejoin each other. Now it begins anew. Forever then, forever, once again. In the ashrama that night, he dreamed of trees turning to gold, a death. He said nothing of his omen to Mary, nor had he the heart to tell Rajaswami, who woke bubbling with good spirits, eager to expound a new theory to the bear. Instead, he sought out Adhikavi and found him eating a melon in the garden. It was a pleasant, sunny morning. They talked a while. Tamar later asked Mary to walk in the orchard. I asked Adhikavi to carry the ruby, he began. He said he would. I trust him. I haven't given it to him yet, but I soon will. That much is settled. And something else is unsettled? Why are you doing this? He promised, Tamar went on, whatever else happens, he'll find his way to Jaya. Mary took him by the shoulders. You're going at this sideways. Tell me straight out, what's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Everything's right. He looked squarely at her. Have you been happy here? You know I have. Will you stay with me? Yes. I mean, in the hermitage. Jambavan will let us live here. He told me so. I'm not going to Mahapura, he said abruptly. I must have known this when we first met. I kept pushing it out of my mind. I was ashamed even to think of breaking the warrior's code. Live by it. Die for it. I can't. Not now. Are love's arrows made of flowers, as poets say? No, they're stronger than that, and they've grown stronger every day. Keep my word to give up my life to someone who may not exist. Once I have accepted that, promise made, promise kept. A king's dharma? No, that's over with. He was speaking defiantly, as if to Jaya himself as much as to Mary. Was it real? Was it a dream? It makes no difference. I won't lose you for that sake of it. My promise to Jaya, I break it. He pulled off the ring and threw it away. Next is part 3, and it's called Ranapura. And if you will recall, Ranapura is where, what were their names? Nahusha and Nahusha and Ashwara are from. And it is that kingdom they are battling over. So I imagine all these chapters are going to take place in Ranapura. So they apparently do leave the Ashrama. Chapter 21, Garuda Does a Service. Come, that's a burden lifted. Tamar smiled and held out his hands to her. For a king and a Kshatriya who had broken his sworn word, his code of honor, his dharma, all within the moment, he felt on the whole pleased with himself, unexpectedly light-hearted. He motioned toward the hermitage. Let's go and tell them. Hashkat should be glad. He can go back to ruling his Bandaloka. As for Rajaswami, that's going to be hard. My dear old Acharya, I'm afraid he'll be shocked. At first. But he'll see the bright side. He can stay here, philosophizing with Jambavan. I think that's what he secretly wishes. Instead of smiling back at him, Mary stood staring, her dark features frozen, her eyes wide. What have you done? she said in a fearful whisper. Done? Tamar was puzzled. I did what you saw. I set myself free. I put an end to this fool's journey. You believe so? She cried. You broke Dharma? Yes, for you. It's what you wanted, isn't it? From the start. Not like this. How then? He burst out. What more? I'm rid of Jaya. I'm not bound to him. I'm bound to no one, only to you. That's not true. Why? Because I broke one promise, you think I'll break another? No, you don't understand. I understand I've thrown everything away, and now you tell me it was wrong. Without hearing her answer, he turned on his heel and strode from the orchard. He did not go to the ashrama. He went rather to the stream. He sat on the grassy bank and looked across to the island where they had danced. He put his head in his hands. Half his heart rejoiced at what he had done, the other half was horrified. Beyond that, he was shocked, bitterly disappointed by Mary's words. Her hand touched his arm. He looked up. You don't understand. There's something you don't understand. I didn't tell you. Tell me now, she said next to him. It's been in my mind for us to stay here. I couldn't decide. Then last night, after we came back, I dreamed this tree's turned to gold. Twice now I've had that dream. This time it tipped the balance. Do you know what it means? It foretells a death. Yours, mine. If we keep on with this journey, I can't let that happen. It won't. Now I'm free of Jaya. You're not free of him, Mary said quietly. You're truly a fool if you think so. I put down that burden, I'd be a bigger fool to pick it up again. You of all people want me to do it. No, I won't. If you don't, you'll carry a bigger burden. Your broken Dharma, for one thing. For another, you'll never be sure of the truth. You'll always wonder and question and chew it over and over. Was it a dream or wasn't it? You'll never be rid of Jaya until you know for certain. I've understood that since the night I offered you the garland. What does it matter whether I'm sure or not? Because he'll always be a shadow between us. Unless you find out one way or the other, he'll haunt you every day of your life. He'll poison you, and in time, it will kill you as if he used a sword. Do you call that being free? If that's my karma, so be it. I can't take back what I've done. He stood and walked up the path to the hermitage, Mary silent beside him. Rajaswani and the bear were at the table in the common room. Adhikavi sat cross-legged by the hearth. Revered Acharya, Tamar formally pressed his hands together and bowed his head. I have something important I must say to you. Indeed, my boy, what a coincidence. I have something important to say to you. My learned colleague and I have engaged in many discussions on the shape of infinity. Is it straight? Is it a circle? Please, Acharya. It is neither, Rajaswami continued. It is, in effect, rather like a figure 8, a remarkable conception. Acharya, what was it, dear boy, that you wished to tell me? The journey to Mahapura. Ah, that, of course. Rajaswami's face fell. I understand. The impatience of youth. Yes, well, it has been most pleasant here. We aren't leaving. Tamar glanced at Mary, who was watching him with a look half anguished, half fearful. You see? Shma, incompetent nitwit! Garuda tumbled through an open window to land in a heap on the floor. He picked himself up and strutted back and forth in front of Tamar. You owe me plenty for this, Garuda cried. I won't forget. Don't you forget either. I'll remind you from time to time. I've done you yet another service. A big one. Careless idiot. You must have lost this in the orchard. Luckily, I found it. Garuda opened his talons and dropped the ring at Tamar's feet. Good heavens, my boy, that was careless indeed, Rajaswami exclaimed. How did you do that and never notice? But the bright side is you have it back, thanks to our sharp-eyed eagle. Tamar stared at the ring as if it had been a viper coiled to strike. Miri's words beside the stream rang in his ears, all the more tormenting because he admitted they were true. As though Miri alone could hear, he said, Not for the warrior's code, not for honor's sake, but for your heart and mine, though at the end they break. Miri answered, Though at the end they break, death will not keep them apart. No ring can bind us closer than your heart that holds my heart. He bent and picked up the ring, which seemed so heavy he could barely lift it. He forced the cold iron circlet on his finger. I wish to be gone from here, he said. Suta, fetch the horses. But my boy, what were you saying? Asked Rajaswami. Not going to Mahapura? Not going until I found my ring, Tamar faltered. No, I haven't lost so much honor that I can lie to my Ashrama. I threw it away. Goodness me, cried Rajaswami. Why ever would you do a thing like that? Before Tamar could explain, the bear pricked up his ears. There was a sound of hoofbeats. By instinct, Tamar reached for his sword. It was not at his side. He had borne no weapon since he had been at the hermitage. Still more travelers? How curious to have all at once. Jambavan lumbered out to the veranda. Tamar, uneasy, stepped after him. Hashkat and Akka came running from behind the stable. Two men had dismounted in the dooryard. Their horses had been hard-ridden, legs and flanks streaked with mud. The riders were dressed much alike in stained cloaks, long-skirted tunics, and leather leggings. They carried swords at their sides and curved knives in their belts. One seemed Tamar's age, the other a few years older. Both were fair-haired, fine-featured, with gray-blue eyes. Their faces were as weather-beaten as huntsmen, but their bearing, they were clearly Kshatriyas, despite their coarse garments. The elder, with a short reddish-yellow beard, moved in confident strides to Tamar. Namaste, King of Sundari. I am Kiran. This is my brother Skanda. Your trail led us to this ashrama. Lucky to find you still here, added Skanda. We expected you to have left by now. This shortens our search. Why seek me? Tamar demanded. Who are you? Speak quickly. I make ready to leave without delay. Allow us to delay your journey a little longer, replied Kiran. You are a friend to our eldest brother, and so we are friends to you. You know his name, Ashwara. Tamar brightened, surprised that he had not seen the family resemblance immediately. Is he well? Safe? He is well. Kiran gave a hard smile. Safe? Ashwara's never safe. He sends all of you his greetings and to you a message. Rest yourselves and your horses. I'm sure that Jambavan, Tamar nodded to the bear, will gladly offer you hospitality while I gladly hear Ashwara's words. Kiran shook his head. Time presses on us as it presses on you. Ashwara says only this, come to me in Chandragar. So, Kiran and Skanda are the brothers of Ashwara, and Ashwara is in Chandragar, which is up here. Where is it? Up here, Chandragar. So I've outlined in orange the route that they have taken so far, or are about to take. They're getting closer to Mahapura, but they're not there yet. Okay, that's all for now. Bye-bye.